This is a very famous chess game, played between two chess masters in Vienna 1910. Richard Reti is white and Savily Tartakower is black. From such a simple position, an extremely brilliant attack comes from white. However, to even get to that position, firstly, black takes the pawn in the center and white simply recaptures with the knight. Black decides to develop their knight, which is a completely normal thing to do in the Caro-Kann. White here moves their queen up, perhaps not the best move, but still completely fine. Here, black starts with the move e5. After white takes, it seems like it's not defended, but the queen comes to check, and after white blocks, the queen recaptures the pawn, so it's defended tactically. It's important to notice something here. Do you see this knight? Currently, it's not protected by anything but white's queen. So naturally, of course, white would run to defend that knight, right? Wrong. Here's where Reti's brilliance comes in. Instead of protecting the knight, white castles. You're probably thinking, well, why can't black just take the knight with the queen? Wouldn't that work? Well, while that's a good idea, unfortunately, white can slide the rook over, and now the queen is pinned to the king and will be lost. So Tartakower obviously didn't fall for that, so instead he just took with the knight, right? There's no problem with this. See if you can find a forced checkmate. Now, it's a sacrifice, so pause it right now if you want to solve it yourself. What is this amazing, brilliant move? A queen sacrifice. The queen runs all the way down the board right next to the black king. Although the black king wants to escape, it's forced to take. Now, why does this matter? Take a look at the dark squared bishop. Whenever we move it, it's a check on the king with our own rook. It's a discovered check, but when the bishop also gives a check, it's a double check. The king is forced to move. If it moves over one square to the right, moving the rook all the way down the board is checkmate. And what is black's only other option? The only other option is to run up this way to the left. However, now there's another amazing checkmate. The bishop runs up the board and the king is checkmated on that square. It's pretty incredible and a brilliant sacrifice by Reti. I'm going to show you an amazing 400-year-old chess game between this guy, whose name I can't pronounce, and an unknown player. Let's get started with this game, which involves a brilliant sacrifice. We're looking at this game from the unknown player's perspective. Here, Greco plays the move e4 as white, and here black decides to play the Owens defense. The whole idea of the Owens defense is to play the move b6 and then bishop to b7, controlling the center with a bishop instead of pawns, at least to start out with. However, Greco is kind of a genius and ends up setting a trap. He plays bishop to d3, and the trap is set. Now, 400 years ago, in the Owens defense, the idea was to play f5, and then after white takes with a pawn, you're going to win the rook, so white can't take with the pawn. However, Greco is a genius and came up with the idea of taking the pawn and then allowing his opponent to take this pawn, essentially winning his rook. However, queen to h5 check. Greco has sacrificed his rook for a huge attack on the king. Now, what is going on? Black is forced to block this queen check with their pawn. Despite having trapped white's rook, black is completely lost. Greco takes the pawn here. Now, if black takes back, this does not work because queen takes the pawn is checkmate and the king is lost. So what can black do instead? They can of course develop their knight, attacking the queen. What's the point of this move? Well, basically what happens is wherever white moves the pawn, black is going to be able to take the queen. So say white decides to move the pawn up, knight takes queen, and let's say white takes the rook and promotes to a queen. Why is this position good for black? Well, it's not. It actually sucks. But at least they're not checkmated, as in this position. Instead, what white decides to do is take this pawn. And after knight takes queen, bishop to g6 is checkmate. The king has no squares to go to and falls to its defeat instantly. A brilliant game by Greco. This idea in the Owens defense is pretty well known nowadays, even having a name, the Matovinsky Gambit, and was first seen in this game. Do you know that the longest chess game in the world took over 20 hours to finish and is 269 moves long? If I get 1,000 subscribers, I'll animate it all.